Guys, again, welcome to Speed St Lucia. We're here with Brian and his Evo 5.6. What? Brian, why I always thought you had a 5?
That's a 6.
Okay. So Brian, basically, tell our viewers what exactly have you done to the car? Where did it start from? What drives you to do better and better and better in this car?
Well, the history of the car. I guess before the car, I had a Honda Acura Integra. Used to street race back in the day when I was younger. We swapped in a B18B motor in there. It was fun for a while. After that, I switched to an RX-7. I had a couple of good years with that, and I got to a point where I needed something more practical, something with more doors, four-wheel drive, good visibility, air condition, that kind of thing. So initially I was looking for an S15, but I could never get one on the auctions. Every time I bid, somebody else would outbid me. And just for kicks, I just bid on this car. And I ended up winning it the next day. So that's how I didn't specifically set out to get an Evo 6, but I just happened to get one. That was my daily driver to go to work, everything too. Even when I got married, that's the car we were in to the reception. So we had a good life from 2010 to say about 2013. But somewhere in between there, I started going on the track. And a few friends of mine, Ken Alonso with the FC, RX-7, Ken Altius with the MR2, Phil James. At that time, he had started. So we used to get together on the track and just put like 5 or 6 cones and drive around the cones just for kicks. That's back in 2000, middle of 2010, going on to 2011. So just for kicks, just for fun. The car had full interior, full everything, but it had a few mods from Japan. And I realized that it was actually quite capable on the track for what we were trying to do. So somewhere around 2013, I acquired my first Jaguars and realized you can't really keep having a dual purpose vehicle, daily driven but racing at the same time, because it can get very expensive. So I just decided to do away with this as a daily and just make it into a track specific car and get a daily on the side later on. So that's from 2014 till now. Bits and pieces have just been ripped off, chopped off, replaced, and right now it's just a shell with a lot of holes and steel bars, and it's a very uncomfortable place to be.
So you now turn this into, well, one of the track monsters that we would see on island. What has it taken for you to get to that point? I mean, we know about all the mods that
Yeah.
everybody speak about on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
What are the sacrifices that you've had to make in terms of the loss of certain parts to gain certain amounts of power if somebody were to try to do the same thing as you're doing
Yeah.
right now?
Well, somehow I played it safe. So for a very long time, the car, we had a stock turbo on there, stock ECU. We played it safe. So most of my mods were more, brake pads, clutch, suspension, tires. For what we are doing, because most of what I did was autocross and a little drag racing in between. So we always played it safe. I never went in and said, okay, I'm going to scrap the entire power plant and go with a stroker kit, with a GT 3076 to all these kind of fancy things. We just kept it simple. So everything that was added on there was added in increments. So the ECU came in 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. 2015, I think. The ECU came in, we calibrated and got it working, but the car was still more or less stock, but running a little higher boost. Then injectors came in, cams. We had done the exhaust at some point. So it's just little bits and pieces. So fortunately, I didn't make that many mistakes along the way. We were able to get the performance of the car up and up in increments, learn the car, increase, learn again, and then gradually modify. The point where I started making some serious mistakes is when we changed the turbo and we started upping the power on the car. I've never done that before. So there's a little bit of research. I depend a little bit on technical guidance from friends and people in the industry. We calibrated the engine and everything. Car was running really well, but there are a lot of rookie mistakes, things I didn't pick up on. Like, for instance, racing a car like that on 91 octane pump gas, running crazy boost numbers, 26, 27, 28 pounds of boost in a rally cross, full boost for almost 2 minutes flat is a guaranteed way of melting a forged piston. I did some rally cross with the car in St. Vincent, and when I looked at the ECU statistics, I hit revs of 9,200 RPM. I must have done that on a downshift at some point. When we got back and we turned on the engine, 2 of the pistons started melting. They had pits in them melting. The number 2 connecting rod spun the bearing, shattered the bearing, spun it completely. And the car was still rolling. We didn't even know it had a spun bearing.
Wow.
I used oil lubricants that were not quite matched for the bearing clearances as well. So I made a lot of little mistakes. I had protections on the engine, but during the race, when the car started running lean due to the fuel pump, the primary fuel pump going bad, instead of activating the secondary pump, I just switched off the protection and continued the race. So all of these little rookie mistakes and carelessness started costing. It cost a lot. So we ended up having to rebuild the engine, change pistons, change rods, and now change the crankshaft.
So tell us about how you had to change your crankshaft, because that's an interesting story from what I know.
So the crank, so that happened about 2 years ago. So from 2019, when we came back from Vency, we had an event on the base in November. After that was the Island Time Attack, the 2-way battle. I made it to finals, came in second. But after that race, I noticed a little noise. We drove the car for about 3 weeks. And then suddenly we just started hearing a tapping sound in the engine. But it sounded like the valves, the tappets. Sorry, the lifters, I said tappets. So at some point we changed valve seals, we changed lifter, we did all kinds of things, and the noise was still there. So we ended up opening the engine up and found out that there was a spun bearing. And meanwhile I was driving the car all around the place. Spun bearing. So took out the crankshaft, we had it polished, Claudius measured it and everything. It was slightly smaller than the rest of the journals, but it was still right on the cusp of the tolerance, the allowed tolerance for the bearings. So we just slapped some brand new bearings on it, put the car back up, and we had the car driving. But after about 250 km, I decided to take out open up the caps on the connecting rods and have a look. And I realized that bearings were worn out.
Wow.
So I don't know if it was the crankshaft maybe being uneven, maybe there was some contamination in the oil, because I remember at one point I did run a tap through the head to clean up the threads for the exhaust studs, and in doing that I know I dropped in some shavings into the engine. I was too lazy to dismantle the engine and clean it out. So I figured let me just flush it with oil, change the oil, flush it continuously and hope for the best. So maybe that's what does it.
Yeah. Another rookie mistake?
Another rookie mistake. Classic rookie mistake. That's probably the biggest one I made. Claudius built the engine, but I decided I want to build my own head. Let me figure out what it's like to build a head. So I polished brand new valves. I seated the valves and everything. Polished out the head, cleaned it up and everything. And I had a second head. That's the one up there. And in the whole process, I ended up taking the caps from both heads, mixing them up, and I just slapped the caps on mine, tightening it up and everything. And we tried for about 2 weeks to crank that engine and start it. Never started. We probably kick a little bit and then dive. My battery was enough. We took a battery from a SUV and combined it with mine to crank the engine. We crank, and then die. So somebody, one of my friends decided, maybe the batteries are not strong enough. We need to tow the car and try to bank start it, and maybe that's when it will start. So we ended up towing it up the road, just up the road there. And when I let off the clutch, I heard some tapping noises. I said, no, that doesn't sound right. The guy said, well, let's try it again. Rookie mistake. So the second time I let off the clutch, the caps, after the camshaft got hot and expanded on the cap, it seized. The timing belt jumped and just I ended up bending like about 9 valves. Brand new valves that I'd never driven before. And then we realized, well, the caps, these are the wrong caps.
The wrong caps for the
So I lost 9 brand new valves.
So you had to order 9 brand new valves?
No. I ordered the car up, so we brought the car here. That happened at maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Brought the car here, tore down the head, took the old valves, cleaned them up, carburetor cleaner and everything, stuck the old valves in there, retimed the engine, put everything back in the car, and started up at about 8 o'clock in the night.
And everything worked?
Everything worked. So that's what's in the car now. Oh yeah, and the caps, we had to mix and match them until they could move freely.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so what management system? I mean, I know people don't like to talk about the secrets, but are you running any management system per se on the car right now, if any?
Well, there was a Link G4 Plus right there. We have that massive wires there. It's inside. So yeah, currently it's a Link Extreme.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is you going to be running?
Yeah, for what I'm doing with the car, it's adequate. It has, I think, maybe 30% of the features, 40% of the features that it's using. I'm not even using. Most people down there probably won't even
use it
for it. Yeah, so that's what I have for now.
So are there any cars that you look to? We know in the recent scene that there are cars that everybody wants to run against and everybody wants to beat.
Well, it depends. If it's
and don't say if it's a Subaru.
Well, I would ideally. Well, I'd say there are 2 categories of cars I'd want to beat. Cars that have beaten me, I'd like a chance to go back and beat them. So that's the first category. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be Suzuki Swift. It could be a free cylinder Honda Fit. Do they come with free cylinders?
No.
I don't know, small.
Small car.
It doesn't matter what it is. I want to go back and beat it. The second category is with respect to any car that is similar in build to this. So like I could reference maybe any car, for instance. He has all the engine management, all the power modes and everything, and he has a lot of suspension and chassis modifications, performance in rally cars. I wouldn't mind going up against a car that is of similar spec to this one, just so that I can know where I stand. Of course, if I don't get a racing car of similar spec,
You just anybody. Okay, so what would you say to anybody who's like the up and coming young people who are into the racing scene? What would you say to them in terms of if they were to attempt something like this?
Attempt that. This project has a lot of. It has an element of luck. It has a massive element of money. It has a lot of time. There's a lot that has gone into this project, and if somebody's up and coming out strongly, I wouldn't encourage going down this path because it's a high risk venture. It worked out for me, but somewhat. But for most people, if you try, it's very likely that you'll end up stopping halfway and deciding it's not worth it, or I have other priorities, or I'm about to have a child and it's not, and you'll end up selling the project. I would suggest, I would recommend getting a very cheap little Honda Civic or a Mitsubishi Lancer or B15 or something like that. Make sure it runs good, make sure you can maintain everything. Go in the dip on the side of a track and just go and thrash it out in the dip. Do some little rally, do some little autocross and have fun with it. Compete with your friends, afterwards shake hands and have a good time. Over time, if you have the money to do it, then maybe you can put out this one. But this is a high risk. Whereas if you have a cheaper car, that's low risk. If you dent a cheap $2,000 car, big deal, let's put it.
Fun.
Yeah. If you damage an axle, like you cut an axle or something, yeah, let's go down $150 or whatever. If you cut an axle on that, we're gonna get it.
Thanks again, guys. This is Ryan.
Yeah, man. Alright, thanks for having me.
No problem.